Hello guys, I am Arnik Jain and this is going to be the third episode of the book 0 to 1. In this third chapter, we will focus on how we can classify companies in two broad ways and what actually happens on the back and how these companies try to conceal their identities for their personal interest. So guys, if you remember, in the last episode, we discussed the question that was what valuable companies nobody building. This question is harder than it looks like because a company might be providing a lot of value without becoming very valuable itself. This is because creating value is not enough. You also need to capture some of the value that you create. Here what I am talking about is primarily focused on revenue and profits. Let's take an example. In 2012, US Airlines served millions of passengers where each flight ticket costed around $178. This made their revenue climb up to $160 billion. But do you know what? Their profit per ticket was only 37 cents. Now compare them to Google of 2012, which actually created a revenue of only $50 billion, but they took away 20% revenue as their profits, which was at least 100 times more than that of airlines. And today, Google makes so much money that it is at least 3 times more than every US airlines combined. Guys, what happened above can be understood by two simple economic terms: perfect competition and monopoly. See guys, in a perfect competition, the market is highly competitive and every firm in that market is undifferentiated, selling homogeneous products. Since no firm has any differentiated product or any market power, therefore they must sell at the price that market determines. The opposite of perfect competition is monopoly, wherein only one company dominates the entire market. A monopoly company hypothetically owns the market and decides the price as well as the supply of the product. Now, I hope that you will be able to place Google and US Airlines under the respective markets. See, according to me, Google is a good example of a monopolistic company that went from 0 to 1, which hasn't been competed since 2000s. Now guys, the lesson that we need to learn from this case is that if you want to create and capture lasting value, don't build an undifferentiated commodity business. So guys, do you know how much of the world is actually monopolistic or how much of them is truly competitive? It's hard to say because actually people are themselves confused, which reflects in their conversations. And the reason why people don't have clarity regarding the same is because of the lies firms and people tell us. Let's understand it through two frames. First, perception, and second, reality. See guys, according to the observer, all businesses seem to be reasonably alike with little differences, but in reality, these differences are deep. These differences are what distinguishes them from one another. And there is enormous difference between monopoly and perfect competition, and most businesses are closer to one extreme than we commonly realize it at. And this confusion that prevents us from knowing the reality of market in which the firm functions is because both monopolists and competitors are incentivized to bend the truth. So now the question is, why do they bend the truth? And how are they incentivized to bend the truth? Let's first talk about monopolistic lies. Monopolists lie to protect themselves. That is because they know that bragging about their great monopoly will invite auditing and scrutiny. And to prevent washing away of their monopolistic profits, they do whatever they can to hide their monopoly, which is usually done by exaggerating the power of their non-existent competition. Let's do one thing. Let's see how Google talks about its business. It never claims to be a monopoly, but isn't it one? Now it all depends on how we see Google. Like, let's put Google in a search engine market. It owns 68% of global search engine market, which certainly shows that Google is a monopoly. But now let's put Google in an advertising market, which is a $500 billion market, where Google merely owns 1 to 2% of the market. Here Google seems to be a small fish in a big pond. And now let's put Google in a multi-phase technology market. Consumer tech is a $1 trillion market where Google owns merely 0.24% of market, which is far away from monopoly. So what Google does is that it showcases itself as a multi-phase technology company and not primarily as a search engine company, which allows Google to escape from all sort of unwanted attention. Guys, you know what? Competitive lies or non-monopolistics tell the opposite lie. They try to showcase themselves as if they own the market, as if they are the leaders, and they're always biased to understate the level of competition. And I guess that's the biggest mistake that any startup or budding company can make. Guys, non-monopolists exaggerate their distinction by defining their market as the intersection of various smaller markets so that it looks unique, it looks distinctive in the eyes of viewer, whereas monopolists, by contrast, disguise their monopoly by framing their market as the union of bigger and larger markets. And that's what Google does. You know guys, in businesses, money is either an important thing or it is everything. And monopolists can think about things other than money, such as ethics or innovation or long-term aims. But non-monopolists can't. Because in a perfect competition, a business is so focused on day-to-day profit margins that it can't possibly plan for long-term future. If your industry is a perfect competition, then death of your business won't even matter to the world and some other undifferentiated competitor would take your place. In the real world outside theory, every business is successful exactly to the extent that it does something other cannot. Monopoly is therefore not a path or an exception. It is necessity of every successful business. Guys, all happy companies are different as each one is earning monopoly by solving some unique problem. Whereas each failed business is same because they failed to escape competition. So guys, that was all for this episode. I will meet you in the next episode where we'll move ahead and learn more and more things. Thank you for being a patient listener and a steady learner.